Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Authors on Mission podcast. Today, we're starting off with a question. What happens when life hits you with a diagnosis that could end everything you've worked for? Do you tap out, or do you find a way to keep swinging along? Today, we're talking with Bob B-Side Cardillo, an underground rapper who's been grinding since '98, an entrepreneur who was selling on eBay before most people knew what it was, and an author who just dropped one of the most brutally honest memoirs you'll ever read. When MS tried to silence his voice, he turned up the volume. From the stages of underground hip-hop to the pages of his new book, Myelin My Shoes, this is a story about refusing to quit when everything tells you to stop. Welcome to Authors on Mission. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, and this is B-Side with the Story. Welcome to our show, Rob.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Glad to be here. Glad to be chatting with you.
That's great. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing all about your story, all about your writing, and of course, any writing tips you might have to offer the audience today. But before we get started, I think it's important that we chat a little about who you are and what led you to writing your book. So, of course, your story started way before MS and diagnosis. So I don't know if you want to give us a little bit of an overview. How did you go from eBay to underground rap to finally author?
Well, I'll tell you, when me and my brother were kids, we, for some reason, got into looking at like sports cards, collecting sports cards and things of that nature. So we would get this magazine called Beckett. It had the prices of sports cards and stuff. And you'd see in the pages like advertisements for action figures and things of that nature. But when we got our figures, we always kept them in the package for some reason. Or we took them out and didn't really play with them much. We really kept them nice. We didn't fight with them and, get different colors on them and stuff like that from fighting with them. So yeah, we always kept our stuff kind of like mintish, either out of the package or in the package. And then, we find out about this thing called eBay, probably through one of those magazines that we would find, and we end up checking this thing out, and our mom obviously lets us use her social security number and all that other stuff, but it really wasn't monitored like that the way that it is now. So it was like the Wild West of the internet right there, So it was crazy. So we started selling our toys on eBay, and we were making decent money at it too. We learned everything about shipping stuff out, weights, how to put somebody's address on a package and all that stuff. There was priority mail. You could get free boxes from them, things like that. So we would get product and stuff like that and ship it out, have invoices, all kinds of stuff. And mind you, we were still just kids, in high school. So from then, as I was growing up, I started getting into rap. But really, the first thing that I got into was rock music. Are you familiar with Green Day at all?
I'm a big Green Day fan. I just went to the Hell Mega tour last year.
Okay, that is great. Green Day is one of my biggest influences, actually.
Love it.
Yeah, probably would not believe that, but I was really big into Green Day, punk rock, all that stuff. Then I started getting into things like hip hop, but not like old school hip hop, like Rakim or anything like that. But I was into you familiar with Master P at all?
Not quite that one, no.
Okay, old school. Yep, I'll give you that. No Limit Records. Ever heard of that? No Limit Records?
I live a little bit under a rock, so just forgive me, but you can continue.
Okay, no, that's actually
fine.
That's fine. So, and then have you ever heard of the Insane Clown Posse?
And B-side, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to
no.
say. So I'm
All
guessing
right.
influenced by them. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, these all influences of mine. Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up in, around the Insane Clown Posse and their whole subculture. And the subculture, we call ourselves juggalos. Okay. And it's underground music. It's nothing like music that you would hear on the radio. Nothing like it. It's way more expressive. It is, there's a lot of talk about murder. There is a lot of talk about love. There's a lot of talk about partying and everything in between. So it is not necessarily like something that you'd hear on the radio or in pop culture. So that is really what I have been involved in for the last 25 years. And, I have toured before. I've gone on the road. I've played shows all over. And it's just been an absolute crazy experience to see everything that I've seen. And I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS for short, in 2011. Now, in 2011, I had just gotten a pulmonary embolism. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with that, where it's a blood clot in your chest, in your lungs?
I have heard
Yeah.
something like that. My mother at one point had a blood clot herself in her feet, but I know that's probably similar to the
Yep, they
similar
travel.
system.
Yep, they travel. So it actually traveled from my leg to my lungs, and it turned into a pulmonary embolism. And I find out that I could have died from it. So that was something that freaked me out. And I made an album actually called Pulmonary Embolism, and I had a song on there called Happy to Be Alive, and I made it about, my whole experience with the pulmonary embolism. And then, not too long after, the pulmonary embolism symptoms kind of brought on all these symptoms from MS, where my leg would start going numb, my arms would be numb, my feet would be numb at some points. And then I decided to really go to a doctor when my midsection went numb. That is something I'm like, yeah, you definitely don't screw around with that. It's time to go see a doctor. And
Mm.
then, they sent me to a neurologist, and he told me you have multiple sclerosis. And, I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I knew it was a neurological disease. And my best friend, Evan, his father died of ALS. I don't know if you saw people with the water bucket challenge and stuff for ALS. Yeah. So that's a neurological disease, and it's very close to MS. So I told my friend Evan, if I had found out that it was ALS, I was literally going to have him kill me. I wasn't going to deal with that because it's a death sentence. So luckily, multiple sclerosis is nothing like that. And it's manageable. And the doctor told me, oh, you can just go along with all these shots and be absolutely perfect. And then I find out from, dealing with these shots, I'm like, well, these aren't working. These aren't doing anything. And I live in a city that's not really up on medical stuff. I know I live in New York, but it's in central New York. It is like right in the middle of New York State. We are very close to Syracuse, New York, Rochester, New York, and probably about 4 hours away from New York City. And I end up talking with my father, and my father gets me linked up with this doctor in Rochester, New York, at the University of Rochester. They take this MRI of my brain that is absolutely crystal clear, like compared to the one that I got back in Utica. And I'm just like, wow, this is absolutely nuts. they just showed me, what it is it's lesions on your brain. Yeah. And your spinal cord and stuff like that. So then what it does is it eats away at this stuff called myelin, which is the coating around your nerve. And that's what multiple sclerosis does. So that's why I called the book Myelin My Shoes. And, so kind of a play on words.
Yeah.
But, I get diagnosed with MS, find out that it's really not, the medicine's really not working. I start getting worse and progressively get worse. So I end up going to these doctors in Rochester, and they really, get me on medication that starts working. So I am, I don't know, I am probably like a couple months or a year past the doctor in Utica. So I'm in the place with Rochester, and I find out that the MS progressed and I'm getting worse. And then I end up breaking up with my longtime girlfriend and having to live with my mother at her apartment. And we go through all this, and it comes to a point where I can't deal with the pain and everything that the disease comes with. And I am failing more and more. I have to go be in a wheelchair now, and I have 24-hour a day, seven days a week care. And everything was just bringing me down. And so my mom is like, you need to get out of this funk. You need to start thinking about things a little differently. You need to start thinking about things more positively, not like all this positive BS crap that people say,
Mhm.
but just start, live for today. Don't think about tomorrow, So I'm like, all right, I can do that. And I start realizing that when I'm working on things, I'm not feeling pain in the same way. So I start working with my father on this business. It's called the Cardinal Center, and it's a business that is going to help businesses with politics and help them understand politics so they can save money in the long run. Politics equals profits. That's the slogan. And it's called the Cardinal Center. And I was working on stuff with him, and there was kind of a lull, and I was kind of chomping at the bit. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm like, I've had this idea of doing a book. It's been in my phone. I've had things written, and I'm like, this is just, I got this stuff together. I need to get this out somehow. And I find out about Chat GPT. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Of course,
but
of course.
I started working with this, and I start talking to it about doing certain things for websites, writing copy for websites. I'll give it like a description of something, and it will flip around words and make it sound better. So I start talking to this thing and really communicate with this thing. I have, like, you see the way I wrote in the book. That's how I talk. I'm censoring myself because I'm on your podcast, and I'm not. I'm a gentleman, so I don't talk like that unless, whatever. So I my Chat GPT cusses. My Chat GPT talks exactly in my vernacular. The way that I speak, it speaks to me just like that. So I'm like, I'm reading more and more stuff, because I start getting into this entrepreneurial guy named Russell Brunson. And I start getting into one of these guys that's talking about using AI to help you write a book. And I'm like, okay. And I start working with ChatGPT. I'm like, can you help me like format things, do things of that nature? And it's like, yes. So I started feeding it I fed it my life story. I
Mm.
literally gave this thing my life story. I wrote my life story down, and it was like chapter by chapter. And that's pretty much how the book got started and how I came up with the whole thing. Because when I'm doing something progressive for me, I'm not in pain. It keeps me out of pain. And I don't know why it does that. Like, I'm here talking to you. I'm completely pain free right now. I don't have to worry about it at all. Yeah. And
Beautiful.
yeah, it's very weird.
Well, it's great to know. Well, first off, thank you so much for the background there. I know that's been a lot going through your life, but every step along the way has led to another and another and another. And I can
Oh,
see.
well, I know it was long-winded. Sorry.
Oh
I
no, what
was
I meant
just,
by
there's a
that.
lot. Yeah, there's a
I
lot.
It's a lot, but it's necessary because it allows all of our audience to understand the full picture of who you are and why you wrote your book and what they can expect to gain from it also. So, you answered a lot of our questions too. And I think the one question I just have to ask now is, how was it different for you to go from writing rap lyrics to writing a book of its own? I'm sure it's a whole different headspace you have to go into. Is that correct?
No, no,
Not quite.
no. Because a lot of my rap music, I tell stories in, except they have to rhyme. This doesn't have to rhyme. I love writing stories, and writing about my life was easy to me, honestly.
Right.
It, I I loved every second of it, to tell you the truth. I couldn't wait to like get down with it, and like either I would use text to or speech to text, and then like I would use my keyboard on my phone. I downloaded Microsoft OneNote, started making little chapter ideas on the side and everything. So I actually thought it wasn't that bad to do. I thought it was easier than writing rap music, to tell you the truth.
That's good. That's good. Especially when you're passionate about something, it makes a task that might come off as a little bit challenging to others flow by easier and you enjoy it more. So I guess that's a tip that everybody could learn from today is enjoy the process. You might be learning if writing can be intimidating, but if you're passionate
Right,
about what the subject is, you find enjoyment of it and it's something you love to do then.
right, right. And like I understand writer's block totally. Like writer's block is a real thing. That is totally a real thing, with music and everything like that. Like writer's block is horrible. And so I understand that too. But like with this, I did not have any writer's block at all. It was just full force going right at it.
Right. Well, that's great to know. And, when you have an idea and you just run full steam ahead with it, I can see how it comes to life then. But that being said, I'm sure there were some difficult chapters to write at least. I mean, you did go through some challenges in your life. Did you have some difficulty revisiting certain memories over others?
Yeah, there was some stuff like I think like with my parents
Mm,
that when I was writing certain things about my dad and stuff like that, I got a little choked up and I was crying while I was writing and stuff like that. And it was just you don't think about certain things, I guess, until you're writing it down. So as I'm writing this stuff, I'm just like, oh, wow, that's, like, all right, well, things pop in your head. And like I had said in the book, like my mom had always told me and my brother, you'll understand what happened when you get older. So It's like, well, yeah, you understand what happened as you get older. He cheated. He was, typical not their father, and maybe not typical, but maybe it was a not a typical situation, but he wasn't there. And in my mind, he was gone, forever. And that's definitely a difficult thing. Another difficult thing is uh talking about like my past life, like going on stage. Going on stage is one of the greatest things in the world. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced it, but it honestly, it's better than the greatest experience you could ever have. I don't know how to describe it, but that was very tough to have to go from talking about my time like on the road and stuff like that, and then talking about my time with MS and how it changed me and how I had to have to be in the wheelchair, and it just reminds me of that. And I don't like being reminded of it, but it brings back great memories.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you don't want to think about, but then again, it shows you how much you've grown. Which,
Right,
yeah,
right.
and how time has passed. So that's all really important stuff. So you do have this book out. Everyone's been enjoying it. But what would you say is the overall message that you'd like the audience to get from your book after reading it and learning about what you've been through?
Never give up. Never give up. Always push through. You need to be resilient. I have never let anything stop me. And I think I've been like that since I was a kid.
Hmm.
And if you think MS is going to stop me, I thought it was going to stop me, but I turned it all around in my head, and I'm not letting it stop me. And I'm going full steam ahead with MS or without it. And some days I feel like absolute crap, and I just have to work through it. Some days I want to cry. I just work through it. And some days I laugh because it's better to laugh than cry. And that's the way I look at it. It's better to laugh than cry and never give up.
Yeah, of course. I like that a lot. You better to laugh than cry, and that's a good thing. Keep optimism in your life. And,
Yeah,
when you go through so many things, that's the least we can do, right?
right.
Yeah. So all this being said, you have this book out. What's next on the horizon for you? Have you considered writing any other books or perhaps delving into any other endeavors?
I've actually thought about, I have a couple things like in folders. I actually have two things that I'm going to work on that's more music business aligned. And it's actually, I want to talk about, there's one thing, it's Spotify. I want to talk about Spotify.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know how you listen to your music. Do you listen to your music through
I do usually use
Spotify?
Spotify, yes.
Okay, now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but do you know that they pay artists 0.003 cents per
That's
play?
pretty low, yeah. So
Yeah,
what's the better platform you would recommend?
I recommend to sell CDs back to people. All the platforms are bad, honestly, but Spotify's the worst. Spotify's the worst one. They pay artists absolutely crap. And in order to make any money first, you have to get 1,000 plays of each song. Otherwise, they just keep the money. So for independent artists, that sucks because if you have 999 plays on your song that whole year, you'll never get paid for anything. And it just kind of sucks.
It is a shame
And,
things work
and
like that.
yeah, and they have a chokehold on the business of music. And so I want to write a book about Spotify, not a whole book, but maybe like a little manifesto book, something like that. And then there's this producer that I have a problem with because he sells these, I talk about it in my book. He sells these leased verses from other artists. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you. If there's an artist that you listen to, just tell me an artist you listen to.
I mean, you're gonna make fun of me. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. I
No,
like,
not making fun of you at all. Taylor Swift. So
sure.
let's say this guy gets a hold of Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift then agrees to license her voice over a track that then is going to get sold to people, telling them that it's a special thing and it's kind of exclusive, but it's not really exclusive because Taylor Swift lent her voice to these songs,
Right.
but they're going to take them and sell them to about 500 to 1,000 other people. And since you listen to Taylor Swift on Spotify, that artist that ends up getting the song with Taylor Swift is going to show up in your Spotify algorithm as a new song from Taylor Swift. And you're going to end up getting it in your algorithm. But the artist that is performing on it is probably going to be crap. So you're going to listen to it and say, what is this? Why would Taylor Swift lend her vocals to something like this? So I'm writing a book about this particular person who does that. And then, like, I want to write a book about my life with MS, because this isn't necessarily my life with MS. This is before and after MS, because I talk about my whole life, obviously, and my life includes MS. So, but I want to talk about just the MS stuff, like what it's like in the wheelchair all the time and how horrible it is to get medical equipment and things like that.
Yeah, and the more you advocate for that, the more change you'll find in the world. So I understand exactly
Right.
what you're going for there. So all this being said, if we've been inspired by you today and we want to learn a little bit more, of course we can pick up your book, but how else can we get in touch with you and stay up to date with all of your endeavors?
Well, the best place to hit me up is on my website, b-cide.com.
Perfect.
And it has all my social media on there. It has where you can buy the book, because I actually have the booktitle.com. I actually have myelinmyshoes.com. MYELIN myshoes.com.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to put the links
Yeah,
in the description box today. So if you're listening and
cool.
you want to click on over, everyone, just go ahead and do that. Wait till we're finished. But first, go ahead and do that as soon as we're done with the podcast today. But as we begin to wrap up, I'm wondering if you have any other certain writing tips and tricks that you'd like to offer our audience today.
To me, the way I write is the way that I talk. So I don't know how everybody else writes, because I know there's some stuff that's like, especially like about medical stuff, that's like really sterilized and, kind of like stiff. But I write how I talk, and like I talk with a lot of slang, a lot of cussing stuff. It's kind of like having a conversation with one of your friends off camera or something. And you might slip a couple F's and S's in there. So you never know what's going on. But I write how I talk. And I would definitely say, don't let writer's block get you down. I'd say here's one of my cures for writer's block that I learned from a guy. His name's Pat Pattison, and he's a famous guy that works with songwriters and stuff. And
Okay.
he says to just write, even if it sounds like crap. Just write. And then you'll read it over and be like, okay, this isn't good. And then you'll just keep writing more. Write a story about something that doesn't have anything to do with anything. And just keep writing. And maybe your writer's block will go away.
Yeah, you just got to keep grinding through it. And
Right.
I've also heard, like you mentioned before, find enjoyment in it, find the passion in it, and it'll make the process so much easier. So that's
Right.
incredible advice right there.
Mm.
So all this being said, we know where to find you. We know where to pick up Myelin My Shoes. And I think it's an incredible story you have here. Yeah, of course. And I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing your tips and tricks with us. It's always an honor and very valuable to everybody listening, for sure.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I was looking forward to it.
Of course. Yeah,
I
we
really
always
was.
are. Yeah, and to all of our listeners, again, go and grab Myelin My Shoes wherever books are sold. You can also check out B. Clyde's music. And remember, if you're working on your own book or your own business or your own dream, hopefully this conversation is proof that you're the only person who could stop you is you. You know, keep writing and keep grinding, keep pushing forward, and take all of this to heart. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast. Have a great day, everybody.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.